On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, a pair of tank-fueling losses for the Raptors over the weekend, and Scottie Barnes, he's trying stuff out. Is that a good thing, or is it bad?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, February the 10th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can follow my work over on Blue Sky. The show is on Instagram, and you can also join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join. Great place. Come hang out, talk ball among friends. Of course, you can also support the daily and free Locked On Raptors newsletter. 5 days a week, you get my original posts in there. You also get Katie Heindel on the League at Large 4 times a week. Michael Shearer on Thursdays, talking all things basketball, poetry, intricate breakdowns, wonderful stuff. Josh Lloyd fantasy tips. And again, it's 100% free. So go subscribe, damn it. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, go check them out there. And we are off and running here on your Monday, talking about a pair of Raptors losses, competitive losses, I'd say, to better teams. The Oklahoma City Thunder on Friday, 121-109, and then a 94-87 rock fight against the Houston Rockets, an injured Houston Rockets team on Sunday. And here to break it all down, dig into some individual performances of note, talk about Scottie Barnes' phase of experimentation, let's call it that, with the good, the bad, and all that stuff, is our pal, Big V, Vivek Jacob, who is here once again. We just can't get rid of you, pal. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Trying to get these extra episodes in before a bit of a break, but happy to spend more and more time with you.
It's a lie, but you're very kind for saying it. I appreciate it. All right, let's dig in here to what I think is maybe the sort of biggest takeaway from this weekend. Look, the team is without RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Jakob Poeltl, now maybe Gradey Dick after he went out of the game with a neck contusion, I believe was what they dubbed it when he was kind of hitting the head on a play at the rim in transition. Look, they're missing a lot of guys. This is not really the representative version of the team that we're going to eventually see probably next season, maybe for a handful of games down the stretch here. And so it's hard to kind of know what's what when you're trying to evaluate it all. But Scottie Barnes in particular, kind of a weird weekend for him. He continues this thing where he's just very bad at shooting in the first half of games. Can't get anything to fall. It kind of persisted in the game against the Rockets on Sunday. Just not a very good game from Scottie Barnes overall. 6 of 19. The night before, on Friday night, he goes 8 of 20 after a really rough start against the OKC Thunder. Still puts up 21, 5 and 4 with 3 steals and 4 blocks because that's what Scottie Barnes does. But my question to you here, Big V, is like, are you worried about what we're seeing from Scottie over this last little stretch? It's been kind of a little bit of a throwback to maybe December where he looked a little bit not focused on the things that he's good at and maybe more so getting tunnel vision-y with the things he's not so good at. At the same time, the team is not really the team, and like they've kind of signaled that none of this is in the interest of winning down the stretch. And so is it all right that he's experimenting and doing stuff that's eventually probably not going to be part of his full package? Where do you come down on that?
So I think at this stage of the season, I would like to see him tighten things up. I think when you come into the season, it's like, hey, what have you worked on over the summer? What are you bringing to the table? And with the 3-point shot specifically, I think he's had enough time with it to say, okay, like this is something I've been working on. This is something I've been doing. I want to kind of just be free with it. And I think he's had the opportunity to do that. And I just don't think the results are there. So, when you look at his numbers the last couple months, like so far in February, he's at 25% from 3.
Not great.
January was 26.7% from 3. December was 27.7%. So unless, there was something to say that you're trying to rediscover, there hasn't been anything to rediscover this season. And so I think from that standpoint, I would like to see more of that impetus of like, okay, let me get going from the inside and then work my way out. Especially, in the absence of Yak, it's like, hey, let's have some sort of, presence inside. Let me, do this effectively for the team, because when you look around the roster, when you look around the rotation right now in terms of who's available, there's probably no one who can do it better than me. And so I think that is something that I would like to see from him right now.
We're gonna have a rare bit of slight friendly disagreement on the podcast here. That's the kind of heat you come to podcasts for, right? I totally get what you're saying. I also think, to me, this feels a little bit like, how, say you're like a fourth year high school student. You've already been accepted to college. You know what's happening next year. You know you got to buckle down in a year. You're going to spend that last semester kind of dicking around. And I kind of think Scottie Barnes is in his dicking around phase. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think for me, as far as evaluating Scottie Barnes, the player, I feel like I've kind of gotten all I need out of this season from Scottie for the most part. Like, he's made this defensive jump. I think it's pretty clear that he's going to be a type of guy who can give your defense a floor going forward. That's amazing. I think the mid-range stuff, a really great wrinkle to his game. The fact that he's still a devastating at the rim finisher despite not getting there a ton, I think is really encouraging. And I think his rim frequency will probably uptick once Brandon Ingram is playing, and once Immanuel Quickley's in a flow and playing more than 2 or 3 games at a time. Once Jakob Poeltl's back and they kind of have the full complement of guys, I think the offense, which again is designed to move stuff towards the rim, that's what the Raptors' whole thing is. I think Scottie's going to start to be the beneficiary of that when he doesn't have to be so on the ball all the time. And so, like, I'm having a hard time getting upset about him seeing kind of test the waters, and he was 4 of 6 from 3 in that game against the Thunder. I think, if anything, I'm a little concerned that he's getting too mid-range reliant, more so than the 3-point shooting. I think the sort of dependence on that sort of turnaround baseline jumper, it's a great shot to have in your bag, no doubt, but it feels like sometimes it's sort of option 1 for him when it should probably be option 2 or 3. And so I would like to see him iron that out. But again, I just kind of think we're in a situation where the team context is like not at all representative of what it's going to be. He can't really operate in space the way he's going to when there are better players around him. And because they've signaled that this is just not a season where like winning matters at all, I just kind of think that's maybe given him the green light a little bit to go and experiment. And I suspect that things will get streamlined and pared down once the team is kind of hitting go next season with their full complement of players. Maybe I'm giving too much of a pass. Like, that's certainly possible. It's not been a great run here for Scottie Barnes, but can you see my side of it, Big V?
I can see your side of things. I think for me, it's more so like I would buy into this more if it was still December,
Sure.
And even if it was still January, right? But now we're coming up, All-Star breaks pretty much here, and I think this is where I wouldn't mind if, even if you're thinking big picture, and your point about, the space he has to operate with right now is going to be fundamentally different from when the team is fully healthy. I would like to, over the next course of games, however long Brandon Ingram is out, to think about, what is this going to look like with Brandon in the picture? Am I going to be shooting more threes, or am I going to be shooting less threes? And I think maybe operating more in that fashion is something I'd like to see. Again, I'm not like disappointed in Scottie. I'm not like mad at Scottie. I kind of get it. It's tough in a season where, you are in this rebuild tank mode, to find that motivation. But I think also from a leadership standpoint, he has made good progress this season. And so this is me almost like, seeing that and challenging him further to say, hey, let's get even tighter. Let's be even more disciplined. And, that intensity that you showed when the Raptors were able to break out of that losing 16 out of 17 stretch and have some really fun wins, and, that energy that you brought, that energy that you're still bringing defensively. Let's see that sharpness on the offensive end.
Totally fair. I will say, I think this last little stretch has been some proof of my theory that Scottie Barnes just plays better when the team is like playing for stuff and is competitive. And again, I know it's a chicken and egg thing, but he really does seem to kind of have a different juice to him when the team is like declared, hey, we're going to try to win some games here. We're going to be competitive and forceful. And like, again, when Bobby Webster says after the Ingram trade, yeah, I prayed to the lottery gods on the Raptors show with Blake Murphy and Matt Bonner, like, yeah, that's I think going to sort of seep down a little bit into the psyche, and I kind of understand. Yeah, it's a strange one. I will say one thing I am still watching for is the connection with Quickley and how their two-man game is working and how they're able to kind of complement one another. I think there have been some nice signs in these last couple of games, some other stuff where it's maybe not quite been connected. You know, there have been moments of good and bad. That's one thing to certainly keep an eye on. And maybe that's reason enough alone for Scottie to kind of lock in and just do the thing to get those reps with Quickley in particular. But again, it's still such a different context than what it's all going to look like with Ingram that I'm having a hard time getting too upset about him kind of being in coast mode, as it were. This is the bargain you make when you decide you're going to lose a bunch of games. Like, guys are just, it's human nature. You're probably not going to have guys kind of operating at full tilt just because, you know, you've kind of declared out front you're not operating at full tilt. It's an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on it for sure. The 3-point shot, it's not there. It's really not. 26%. It'd be nice if we could kind of tap back into it and figure out some touch and get the stroke back online, but maybe it's just not going to happen. We're going to come back on the other side and get into some other individual performances from the weekend because the team context makes no sense. So let's just talk about individual guys doing individual things and whether we liked them or not. We'll do that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by Skims. Yes, it's that time again. We're talking about Sean's underwear. And when I found out Skims was going to be having underwear for men, I got really excited. My wife has some pairs. She swears by them. She loves them. And then when they said, we got a men's line now, boy, oh boy, did that get me excited. I always have issues with my underwear. Not in a gross way, just in like a comfort way. I want them to be light. I want them to be breathable. I want them to stay in place and not bunch up. And Skims, boy, oh boy, are they ever perfect. I have a couple pairs. I have like a longer pair, a shorter pair of boxer briefs. The longer pair I love playing basketball in. They're super comfortable, super breathable, super light. And I really just, I dig them. I very much swear by these freaking underwear, man. They're so good. Yeah, they got the boxer briefs. They have all kinds of different shapes and sizes as well for you to go and test out. Highly recommend that you go do it if you're in the market for some comfortable ruse. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for your Valentine or for yourself, Skims has just launched their best Valentine shop ever. Available sizes in women's, men's, kids, even pets. Yeah, they got pets underwear. Crazy stuff. Go check them out. Skims.com. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet, among other places on the internet where he writes his many, many good words. Let's get into some individual performances here, Big V. Again, not a whole lot to pull from the team performance necessarily, not exactly the team we're going to see when this team is at full flight. But there's some stuff we can kind of dig into on the individual level. Let's start with Immanuel Quickley, shall we? Bit of a weird weekend for him. Friday night, 10 assists, some nice playmaking stuff. Started off the game really nicely. Comes off a screen, bangs a 3 from the top of the arc. Beautiful. I think that's just like a thing they're going to try to run for him a lot to get him going early in games. And then he took 5 shots the entire night. Not what you want from Immanuel Quickley. Then against the Rockets, started off blistering. Ends up taking 15 shots in this one, 20 points on 6 of 15, 3 of 9 from deep as well. So it's 3 of 6 from 2-point range. 8 boards, only 3 assists to the 10 assists he had on Friday night. The search for balance with Quickley, I think, is going to be an ongoing story here, like kind of finding his own offense and then creating for others. What have you made of Quickley in these last couple of games? Obviously, like, it's such a hard and weird season to evaluate for him, considering it's been so stop and start, and the games he has played in have been in such tiny little compressed chunks, and then there's another little chunk, and then there's another little chunk. There's been no rhythm to be found whatsoever. What did you make of Quickley's weekend, good or bad overall, and sort of little observations within it? What you got?
Yeah, I think just a general lack of rhythm and, pacing and understanding his role in the offense. You throw in the 9 turnovers as well that he's had over these last couple games.
Mhm.
I think there's just a lot of playing catch up, if you will. And I think that in the offense, it's almost like, am I necessarily feeling comfortable enough, when I knock down my first couple of shots to just keep riding it and riding it? I don't know. These guys have had it going. I should, just fit in. And so I think maybe, once he gets his sea legs under him, there'll be that comfort and just like playing. But yeah, it does feel like there's a lot of thought going into everything he's doing right now. And I think that's what's holding him back. I think, when you look at the 9 threes, for example, against Houston that he attempted, like, you want to see that every game.
Absolutely. As Samson Folk wrote last week, let it fly, IQ. Like, he's got to let it fly.
Yeah. And I think that's something when you go back to, what I was saying earlier about, hey, what is this team going to look like around Brandon Ingram? Like, he's got to be ready, catch and shoot every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something where I think it's been discussed a little bit, in terms of his shot setup. Is the release quick enough? And that's maybe something that he can look at in the summer. But for now, I think it starts with the mindset of just, hey, look, we've already got Scottie who likes sharing the ball. Maybe I don't need to have as much of a pass first mindset.
Sure. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting though, because when Ingram's back and Scottie's there, right? Like, it's going to necessitate, I think, IQ deferring a little bit more, and kind of, the thing is, he's holding the ball a lot. Like, he's got to be quicker with the decisions. He's got to get them into the flow a little quicker. But like, there's still good stuff going on. Like, it's again,
he's a good player.
He's a good player. Like, it's this is the thing, right? I think there's a large chunk of the fan base that's like already turned against him, because apparently that's just like a thing everyone has to do every year, is find a guy to hate on for reasons, because everyone's brains are very normal and healthy. But like, I think you just have to accept that the lack of rhythm is a thing. The lack of balance is a symptom of that. And it's just going to take time and reps to kind of get back in the groove here, right? Like, he's not played more than 6 games in a row all season long. I think, again, he hasn't been great in these games, there's no doubt. But like, even in these games over the weekend, they were -2 in his minutes against the Thunder, and they were even in his minutes against the Rockets. Like, they're a more functional team when he's on the floor. He gives that vertical spacing, or vertical spacing, that's lob dunks, whatever. He gives the horizontal stretch out to the logo. Like, he breathes life into the offense. He's constantly moving. When he doesn't have the ball, he's not standing still. Like, he's doing stuff. He's relocating. He's looking for when he can get it back again. Like, there's good stuff going on here. And I think the defense has been really nice from him too. He's like really getting into guys' shirts. I think his screen navigation has been way better as, again, the season has progressed, all 14 games he's played or whatever it's been. It's slowly coming along. He's, smart rotational defender. He had a couple beautiful digs last night, or yesterday afternoon, kind of coming in from the corner to sort of force a turnover or whatever. Like, he's a smart defender. There's a lot good going on here. I just think it might be until next season before we see a fully sort of in rhythm and functional version of Quickley playing with the whole team. And that's a bummer. Like, it sucks to waste a year. Sucks that the injuries have been so unlucky and so frequent this season, but there's still like plenty of reasons to feel like this is going to iron itself out again with rhythm and time. Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks, he was on the show last year after the trade. We were talking about Quickley, and it's come up many times, I think, not just from Gavin, but from other people who have talked about Quickley. He's a rhythm player. He's someone who's better when he's in the groove and he kind of feels things out and knows the sort of timing and the beats and rhythms of how the team is playing. And there's just been no opportunity for that. And when he has played, the teams has like looked so different in all his little stints as well. It's tough, but it's just kind of a reality of having to be patient. And again, I think there was some good stuff this weekend to build upon. Some stuff he's got to iron out as well, obviously. And again, it's just searching for that balance. Who else caught your eye this weekend, Big V? I will serve it up to you, put you on the spot. Who you got? Someone you want to talk about positively or negatively?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really nice just having Jonathan Mogbo back in the frame.
Hell yeah.
I think, the versatility that he offers defensively, there's been some really nice moments between him and Scottie and the way they've been able to read each other. And I think, that's been fun to watch. I think, the way he plays offensively, I like that. He's someone who, in terms of the threes, I'm happy to see him take as many as possible, because
Yeah.
this is a
Don't care
guy.
you went 0 for 5, my man. Let it rip.
Yeah, exactly.
0 for
And so,
6, sorry, against Houston. Yeah.
yeah. So, as long as they're not like ridiculous attempts like early in the shot clock,
Yeah.
majority of the attempts that we're seeing are just those corner threes, right? And so you don't have a problem with those. I do think that that is something I'm perfectly fine with. Again, this probably carries over from the beginning of the season when we saw him, is just, the rim finishing and getting
Yeah.
those opportunities, and really, being balanced, being assured, use that body, get that separation, finish strong. Those are probably the things I'm looking for most from him going down the stretch.
Yeah, for sure, right? It's just like the soft skills around the rim, he really wants to try to dunk it a lot and misses a lot of dunks. It'd be great when those start to fall. I like that he's kind of got this vertical spacing element a little bit too, where he's kind of turning himself into something of a lob threat. That's huge. I know he's only 6'7" on paper or whatever it is, but he certainly plays bigger than that. Functional size wise, he plays massive. His arms go for days. His shot contests just seem so hard to get over if you're just like even a shooter on the perimeter, right? There's like a lot going on here that I really like with Mogbo. Yeah, the offensive stuff is going to take some time, but he's just such a special defensive prospect, I think. Like, so in control of his body. The arms, again, are just there for days. I think he's got a real sense for timing on defense and where to be and when to make the rotations and all of that. Like, he's a world record out there, or has the chance to become a world record out there. And it's really fun. And I'm going to expand upon it a little bit more and kind of get to something you noted about him and Scottie coming up in the good, the bad, and the a little bit later on. I also want to just take a quick shout out to Ja'Kobe Walter, who it's coming together a little bit here, right? Like, not the most efficient. What was he? It was 4 of 10. That's not bad. He was 2 of 5 from downtown against the Thunder. Against the Rockets. He was 5 of 9 against the Thunder. Good player, man. There's just like a lot I like about Ja'Kobe Walter. The man lives to make the right play. Really smart, doesn't like waste touches, makes stuff happen, looks more confident with his shot. I am a big believer in Ja'Kobe Walter, man. There's, again, it's been a little wonky efficiency wise all season. It started off really rough, but he seems to have found a comfort zone here. Those threes, those pull-up threes, boy, oh boy, that's a thing. That's huge. Quick thoughts on Walter.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I enjoy watching him play. Again, plays the right way. And we've kind of seen this trend this season where the Raptors were clear about, drafting guys with legit basketball IQ. And you can see that with Shed. You can see that with Mogbo. You can see that with Ja'Kobe Walter. And I think that just automatically increases the ceiling when you layer that on top of the skills that they bring to the table and the athleticism. So, yeah, I think with Walter, and, we talk about efficiency. You look at these last 2 games, it was a combined 9 for 19 and, 5 of 10 on twos and 5 for 9 on twos and 4 for 10 on threes.
Yeah,
you'll take the 4 for 10 from 3. So I think he is shooting the 3 with confidence. I do like that. That's probably the one thing that if it can stick for him and he can be like ideally a 37+% 3-point shooter, that becomes very, very valuable. And that also adds to the intrigue of the long-term shooting guard position.
100%. No doubt about that. It's it's nice to have competition for a spot, I would say. And I think that, we'll see what happens with RJ. We talked about the possibility that he could be the guy that they eventually move now that they've got Ingram in tow. But, if they do that and they make sort of like more of a roster balancing trade type of situation, again, way far down the line. But Ochai, Gradey Dick, Ja'Kobe Walter, all interesting candidates for that spot. And it's fun to have like a lot of nice options. We'll get into this a little bit coming up too with my but a lot of good, interesting young guys on this team. It's pretty fun to take in. And yeah, Walter, I mean, he came in from college and I kind of thought he had like Hooper written all over him. he's like 95% less hooper pilled than I thought he was going to be. He just like knows how to play the game. He's really smart. I dig it. We're going to come back into the side, close things out with the good, the bad, and the things we liked, things we didn't like, things that's got a little bit, things that got us a little bit intrigued from the weekend that was, as I will continue butchering the English language to come up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off and want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Look, the Raptors not doing a whole lot down the stretch of the season, but one thing they have been pretty good at all year is covering the spread. It happened in that game against the Thunder. They were like 19.5-point underdogs, and they lose by 12. That's like classic Raptors stuff this year. Competitive, ethical tanking losses, baby. It's going to help them cover a lot of games. If that's something you want to go throw some money down on, you can go do it at FanDuel's very easy-to-use app. And when you win, you get paid instantly. That's very cool. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet and Sportscasting and Basketball Insiders and cricket commentary and a whole bunch of stuff. Wearing hats. Big V.
It's my Kelly Olynyk tribute.
It's not a snapback, though, so you failed. The good, the bad, and the that we wrap up every single episode of this here podcast on the heels of a Toronto Raptors basketball game. A thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, a thing that's got us a little bit intrigued from the latest in Toronto Raptors hoops. I will give you the floor, sir. What you got for your good?
So this might be a bit out of the box, but I was curious to see, with Chris Boucher not having been moved, what his playing time would look like. And so I am encouraged to see him be a part of the rotation. 15 minutes, 18 minutes, around that range. I think that's healthy. I think that's good for the team. I think it's good for him. Michael Grange reported there was a point when it seemed like he was the most likely to be traded. And of course he hangs on to fight another day. So yeah, I think it would have been disappointing if he was just kind of dropped out of the rotation, with Mogbo back in the frame and everything. And maybe we'll have to see what that looks like once Yak is back. But I am happy to see him in the mix.
Yeah, 100%. Chris Boucher, a king. What happens with him beyond this year? No idea. Maybe they do the Udonis Haslem thing that we've kicked around. Maybe he gets more money somewhere else. But nice to have Chris Boucher still living the dream and being Chris Boucher for at least a little bit longer. It's going to give some life to this back part of the season, which might feature many, many L's. My good is the Scottie Mogbo Oops All Arms front court. It's really fun. Obviously it's better when Jakob Poeltl is in there. He makes things happen offensively that Jonathan Mogbo just cannot. But watching those two dudes defend in that game against the Rockets, like starting that game off, they were smothering. Drives were just doomed from the start with those two guys lurking at the back end. I am super high on what those guys can do. I think Mogbo is going to unlock a lot of defensive possibilities for this team. Can they be more of a switch-heavy team? Can he be someone who guards like legitimately 1 through 5? I think it's on the table. He rules. And, the idea of like in the future, like Ingram, Scottie, Mogbo front courts, very long, much wingspan in there. I know there's no Poeltl. There's not like a traditional 7-footer, but again, Mogbo plays bigger than his actually listed height. That could be kind of fun. I am, to your point earlier, thrilled that Jonathan Mogbo is just back in the rotation because he does fun, interesting things very often throughout these games, even if it's all still very raw. What was your bad?
Look, I think we've beat down on the Scottie Barnes threes discussion, so I won't stick with that. Sure. It's not to the point where it's a bad, but this is probably the worst I'm willing to go with it. Is I think Ochai has shot the 3 ball well enough to just like every game, let's just go, man. Let's get those threes up. And so like there's no need for him to only have 3 attempts.
Sure.
I think pretty much, I think Jan and Feb so far, he's averaging just over 3 attempts a game. And so I get that, the minutes have been cut down a bit because of the role he's playing now. But I do think that he's shot the ball well enough to just say, hey, like, I'm just a good enough shooter on this team to get, 5+ attempts.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if he is someone who has designs on one day finishing up the starting 5 on this team, the 3-point volume is going to have to be there. It's going to have to stay accurate. He was only 1 of 10 over the weekend from deep, which is weird,
Yeah.
considering how like just metronomically consistent he's been for most of the season. Hopefully he can get
And
that back.
overall,
Also 5 of 5 from 2 against the Rockets, which is also the Ochai thing, is he just never misses 2s, which is great.
Jan and Feb, he's still at 37%.
Yeah.
So it's not
sure.
like, I'm shooting less because I feel like I'm struggling, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe, maybe that's a confidence thing where it was like when he was at 42, 48%, it was like, okay, yeah, now I'm really feeling good. It's like, man, 37% is still good enough, especially on this team, to get them up. So go ahead and get them up.
Let it rip, man. I mean, we saw what letting it rip can do on Friday. Yes, they lost to the Thunder, but they were also 19 of 41 from 3. It's beautiful. It brings a tear to my eye. The fact that they lost after going 19 of 41 from 3, one of their better 3-point shooting nights all season, if not their best, is it's a bummer, but that's the Thunder for you. My bad is just Gradey Dick getting hurt. Sucks. These are valuable minutes for him just as they are for anybody else. He's also one of these guys who, his long-term fit where in, certain lineups and starting lineups and all that is very much up for debate. And I don't think that means he's going anywhere, but, is he going to be a 6-man for the long haul? Is he going to be a starter for the long haul? I think those are very fair questions. And it sucks that he, hopefully not going to miss too much time. Hopefully everything's all right. I'm sure they'll take their sweet ass time bringing him back because that's the season we're in right now. But never good to see a guy whose minutes are important and matter going out. And it's going to make life that much more difficult for Scottie Barnes to play normal basketball if Gradey Dick is going to be out of the lineup as well. Because that will make 4 of their 6 starter quality players out of the lineup. Great. What's your for this one?
I'm probably gonna go with we know we've touched on this a little bit before, but like, how do we get Scottie? Like, someone's got to be on the team, on the staff, that's like gotta sneak in a little, like, this is where you get to make a statement against a certain guy. And it's like when you see that, for example, matched up against Amen Thompson, and he's just following him like a hawk. And it's like, oh, everyone's talking about your defense. Take a look at this.
Right.
And I feel like when he gets those opportunities against certain guys, there's like a different level of spark and joy. And I mean, you've highlighted like when he has something to play for, you see that little bit extra. And maybe that's something that needs to be targeted specifically on the offensive end, and it's like, hey, in terms of sharpening things here, how do you find that motivation, that spark to like be as intense in your approach to what you're doing offensively? And that's what I kind of have as my
I like that. Just find different guys to go destroy on offense to boost yourself, buddy. Reed Shepherd. God, Reed Shepherd. Yikes. We talk a lot about the Rockets drafting really good players. Not so sure about that one. But my is are the Raptors on track to be one of the deepest teams in the NBA next season and beyond? Because I kind of think they might be. Like, you're missing Ingram, Pirtle, and Barrett, maybe Dick now. And there's still like, I don't know, 7, 8 guys that I'm just like thrilled to see on the basketball floor. Again, young, figuring things out. But Mogbo, Shed, Walter, Dick, Agbaji, that's 5 bench guys right there. Like, it's kind of interesting, man. I look, you need depth to survive in the NBA. Having 11, 12 good players is going to be a recipe for, I think, winning a lot of regular season games going into the future as injuries continue to be a thing that teams deal with. And like we talked again about RJ, like if they were to trade RJ for a couple of more balanced pieces, like you're looking at just like an incredibly deep roster. Again, maybe not the super high-end talent you want, but for regular season wins machining, pretty damn good thing to have. And, you know, a lot of these guys are on their first year of the rookie deal, second year of the rookie deal. There's a lot of runway here for the cheap bench depth on this team to continue getting better year over year. And I think they will benefit from this stretch of just having to play a lot of minutes too, right? It's fun to think about, man. I'm like, it sucks that I'm this looking forward to next season already while it's only February and there's still so much time to kill between now and then. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly exciting. And the back end of this bench figures to be a strength for this team for quite a while as early as next season. Either way, we will continue talking about them here and all the good fun stuff, the little bits, the little kernels, little morsels that are good from these games, even as they lose as we go forward. So thanks so much for rocking with us. Please follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Much appreciated when you support the show, however you support the show. Newsletter is on the screen as always. Big V, anything you want to promote for the good people from your end?
Usual stuff. The Substack, Raptors in 7, Sportsnet, Sportscasting, Basketball Insiders. You can follow it all at Vivek Jacob. Thank you.
Hell yeah. All right. We'll be back again tomorrow with topic TBD. Frankly, I'm not quite sure we're going to get into tomorrow. But that's the fun surprise. Be sure to tune in. That's a tease, but without not even a tease. It's, I don't know. Either way, thanks so much for rocking with us. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Right on.